Quick question, do you have a 401k, an IRA, any kind of retirement account through your job? If yes, I need to tell you something slightly weird. You might already own a piece of Elon Musk's SpaceX, the rocket company, the Mars one. You may have bought in without ever clicking a single buy button, without knowing the ticker, without even deciding to. And no, this isn't a conspiracy theory or some crypto bro trying to sell you a course. This is just how the modern stock market quietly works, and almost nobody notices it happening. So today, I'm going to show you exactly how a piece of one of the most hyped companies on earth can end up in your account while you were busy doing literally anything else. And because I'm Max and I refuse to hype you, I'm also going to tell you the part the breathless headlines leave out. How much you own, whether you should care, and what, if anything, you should actually do. I'm Max. I have no face, no job, and a retirement account I clearly need to read more carefully. Hit subscribe, drop a like, and let's solve this little mystery. Here's the news in plain English. SpaceX, which was a private company for over 2 decades, meaning regular people couldn't buy it, just went public. It did an IPO. If you watched my last video, you know an IPO is when a company sells slices of itself to the public for the first time. SpaceX's was enormous. We're talking the biggest IPO in history, with the company valued at somewhere around $1.7 to $1.8 trillion. Trillion, with a T. It's now trading under the ticker SPCX. So for the first time ever, anyone can buy SpaceX stock directly. Cool. But that's not the weird part. The weird part is that you might already own some without buying it directly at all. To understand how, we need to talk about the quiet machine running underneath your retirement account. Let's rewind. Most people with a 401k don't actually pick individual stocks. When you signed up, and probably on your first day at a job, half listening during onboarding, you most likely put your money into something called an index fund or a target date fund. That little checkbox you clicked years ago, that's the machine. Here's what an index fund actually is. Instead of buying one company, it automatically buys a tiny piece of every company in a particular list. An index. Remember the ETF idea from last time? Same energy. The most famous index is the S&P 500, which holds the 500 biggest U.S. companies. But there are others, like the Russell 1000, which holds the 1,000 largest, and the NASDaq 100. And here's the key thing that makes the magic happen. An index fund doesn't think. It doesn't have a manager going, do I like SpaceX? It's a robot. Its only job is to perfectly mirror its index. So whatever companies are in the index, the fund is required to own. No opinions, no hesitation. If the list says buy it, the robot buys it. You see where this is going. When a company goes public, it can get added to these indexes if it's big enough. And SpaceX is, to put it mildly, big enough. Now, normally there's a waiting period. The S&P 500, for example, makes a company prove itself first. It has to have traded publicly for a while and actually be profitable for 4 straight quarters. Strict bouncer. SpaceX does not currently meet that bar, so it's not in the S&P 500 yet. Keep that in mind, because it matters later. But, and this is the twist, 2 other major index providers change their rules to fast-track giant IPOs like this one. The Russell 1000 can add a massive new company after as few as 5 days of trading. The NASDaq 100 adds it after 15 trading days. So within days and weeks of SpaceX going public, it slides into those 2 big indexes. And the moment it lands in an index, every robot index fund tracking that index is forced to go buy SpaceX automatically, including the index funds and ETFs sitting inside millions of people's 401ks and workplace retirement plans. If you own one of those funds, and statistically you probably do, then congratulations. Your account just bought SpaceX. You didn't lift a finger, the robot did it for you. That's the secret. That's how you can own a piece of a Mars rocket company while you were asleep. Not magic. Just a very boring, very automatic machine doing exactly what it was built to do. Okay, deep breath. This is where Max earns your trust, because the internet is currently losing its mind about this, and most of it is overblown. Here's the honest truth. Yes, you'll own SpaceX, but you'll own a sliver, a crumb, a rounding error. Let me put real numbers on it. Index funds usually weight companies by size, but only count the shares that are actually available to the public. And SpaceX only floated a relatively small chunk of itself, so its slice of any index is small to begin with. One analysis showed that if SpaceX made up around 0.15% of a typical target date fund, and that fund is split 60% stocks and 40% bonds, then SpaceX would be roughly 0.09% of your total holdings. Let that sink in. If you had $10,000 in that account, your exposure to SpaceX would be about $9. $9. This is not your 401k is about to get flipped. This is you found a forgotten coin in the couch cushions of your retirement. The scary headlines screaming that SpaceX is taking over your retirement are, frankly, doing the thing I promised this channel would never do, hyping you up over a crumb. Now, I'm not going to swing too far the other way and tell you it's nothing, because there's a genuine point buried under the hype, and it's actually a useful lesson. The interesting part isn't the $9, it's that you had no say. SpaceX is right now an unprofitable company. It pulled in big revenue last year, around $18 billion, but it also lost billions in a single quarter because it's burning cash building rockets and space infrastructure. That might work out spectacularly. It might not. Nobody knows. And yet, because of how index funds work, a bunch of people are now part owners of a risky, unprofitable company, whether they personally believe in it or not. The robot doesn't ask your opinion. It just buys what's on the list. This is the quiet trade-off of index investing that nobody mentions when they tell you just buy index funds. You get instant diversification and you never have to think. But in exchange, you also give up the steering wheel. You own a little bit of everything on the list, including the stuff you might never have chosen yourself. That's not a reason to panic. Honestly, for most people, index funds are still one of the smartest, simplest ways to invest. But it is a reason to actually understand what you own instead of clicking a checkbox on day one of a job and never looking again. Here's the max answer, and you might find it refreshingly boring. Probably nothing. If you're a long-term investor with an index fund, a 0.09% sliver of SpaceX is not something to lose sleep over. You don't need to sell, you don't need to panic buy more, and you definitely don't need to restructure your retirement because of a headline. The whole point of an index fund is that no single company, not SpaceX, not anyone, can make or break you. That tiny slice is diversification working exactly as designed. What you should do is the thing almost nobody does. Actually open your retirement account and look at what funds you're in. Not to react to SpaceX, just to know. Are you in an S&P 500 fund, a target date fund, a Russell or NASDAQ index? Once you know that, you'll understand roughly what you own and why things like this happen. That 5 minutes of looking is worth more than any breaking news headline. And if you're someone who specifically wants more SpaceX or specifically wants none of it, now you know the mechanism. You know it rides in through certain indexes, so you can choose your funds with that in mind. Knowledge, not panic. That's the whole game. So let's bring it home. A company that was locked away from regular people for 20 years just went public, and through the quiet, thoughtless machine of index funds, tiny pieces of it are now scattered into millions of retirement accounts, possibly including yours, with nobody having to decide anything. It's not a scandal, it's not a windfall, it's just how the modern market actually works. Finally visible for a second because the company was famous enough to make the news. And the real lesson isn't about SpaceX at all. It's this: you should always know what you own. The market is full of these quiet machines moving your money around while you're not looking, and the people who stay calm are the ones who understand the machine instead of fearing it. So here's your move. Today, log into your retirement account, yes, actually do it, and find the name of the main fund your money is in, just the name. Then come back and comment it below, and I'll tell you in plain English what it actually holds. Let's demystify this thing together. And if this turned a scary headline into something that finally makes sense, subscribe, because the financial world is going to keep throwing big, confusing news at you, and I'll keep translating it from panic into plain English. Because the truth is, you were never as clueless as the headlines wanted you to feel. You just needed someone to show you the machine. And now you can see it.